All right, so in the next few hours from now, the very first exit polls of the French presidential elections will be out. Now remember, the French people have been voting since 8 o'clock this morning, and the voting will come to an end at 8 p.m. local time in France. And it remains to be seen who the French people have voted. Are they willing to give Emmanuel Macron another chance, or will Marine Le Pen unseat the incumbent president? Now, during the course of their campaigning, both Macron and Marine Le Pen have expressed very different visions for France. So in the next few minutes, let's decode what each of them, of course, wants to do for France's future. Now, one of the biggest issues for the people in France, of course, is economy. Immigration is another issue that seems to be weighing down on the minds of the French people and the country's security, and also the war in Ukraine. So let's start with the big issue of where France will stand on European Union under each of these leaders. Emmanuel Macron views the European Union as a central pillar of his diplomatic agenda. Throughout his 5 years in office, Macron sees the European bloc as part of the solution for France on a whole host of different issues, including environmental and also security matters. According to the incumbent, Europe presents opportunities for the transition of France to cleaner energy. And this he intends to do through a European Green Deal which aims to take EU to carbon neutrality by as early as 2050. Now, Macron has also said that he aims to strengthen the EU's external borders and align member states' rules on asylum seekers, refugees and migrants. Meanwhile, Marine Le Pen has a completely different stance on the European Union. During her 2017 campaign, the far-right leader wanted France to in fact exit the euro currency. European Union also is something that she's not very comfortable with, and therefore wants France to not be dictated to from Brussels. The Marine Le Pen wants to establish the primacy of French laws over the European Union laws, and for this, Marine Le Pen wants to work with her allies in Hungary and Poland. Le Pen has said that she would want to cut French contributions to the EU budget, renegotiate the Schengen Agreement, and also reintroduce checks on goods that enter into the country from the EU states. Now, the second issue is, of course, their position on NATO. Macron, on the one hand, views the North Atlantic Treaty Alliance as a useful military alliance. He further aims to have better cooperation between the alliance's members. The incumbent has also asserted that if he wins a second term, then he would want to bolster the cooperation and operations outside. While Marine Le Pen has a different take on how she would want France to take part in NATO's operation. She wants France to withdraw from NATO's integrated command, asserting on how she wants closer ties between NATO and Russia. She's also said that she does not want France to follow the Biden administration blindly.
Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Se sont éveillés suite à la réponse française à la lettre du président Poutine.
All right, so this, of course, is going to be a very important night for the French people. And to give us more insights in terms of what could happen in this election, we're joined in by journalist Elaine Cobbe, who's joining us live from Paris. Now, Elaine, this, of course, is going to be one of the most crucial elections for the people of France. You know, the votes are being cast, and soon we would have the opinion polls that would announce as to who perhaps has the edge. At this point of time, you know, give us a sense of what the mood is like in France for this big election. What is the voter turnout like?
Well, the mood is very much one of uncertainty, and so far voter turnout is lower than 5 years ago and lower than the time before that as well, at just under 25%. That could be bad news for Emmanuel Macron, because it might mean that the left and centre-left voters who have been disappointed in him have simply decided not to vote. Now, it doesn't help that today is the first day of school holidays for several regions, including Paris. So if people decided, well, he's up to 15 points in the lead, according to the latest opinion polls, so maybe we don't need to. Let's just go and take the kids and not vote at all. So it will depend on how it goes. Frequently, there are lower votes early in the day. We'll know a bit more in about 30 minutes of what real trends are. And in 3.5 hours, we will probably know who the new president is, unless it's too close to call.
All right, that's interesting. And also, in terms of how the campaigning has gone on, there are it says that these two leaders, Emmanuel Macron and Marine Le Pen, in fact represent two different visions of France. When you talk around the common people on the streets of France, who are they backing in terms of the different visions that these two leaders represent?
It's interesting talking to people because there are so many people voting for reasons that are not specifically for someone, but rather against. I met people who said that they don't necessarily blame Macron for not having done very well, but they're disappointed and they're angry, and so they might vote Le Pen. I met someone who said, look, Le Pen is racist. My parents were Algerian. I remember the National Front, as the party used to be called. I know what they're like, but the young people don't, and maybe they need to know, so maybe I'll vote for her so they can see, which seems terrifying logic, but some people are thinking like that. And others are saying, you know what, I don't want Le Pen, but I'm not going to vote for Macron because I'm still angry with him. So there's a lot of complicated reasoning there.
All right, interesting. Now, for people who are watching this election from outside of France, because the election process itself is very complicated. There was the first round of election, there were many candidates there, and now we're in the second round runoff where the two candidates are facing each other. One crucial aspect is, from the candidates that were there in the first round, there has to be a transfer of votes that must take place to one or the other candidate in the second round. And the left leader, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, he'd managed to get 22% of the votes, and that is likely to prove to be very decisive in electing the winner tonight. In terms of transferring their votes, who are the left-leaning voters likely to vote for in this election between a centrist president and a far-right contender?
Well, his far-left voters are more likely, frankly, to abstain. Quite a number would be more likely to vote for Macron because they couldn't stomach the idea of the far right. But in opinion polls ahead of the second round, more than 11% of his voters said they would vote for Le Pen because they think that at least she understands the issues that Mélenchon seemed to understand too, that mattered to them most. This campaign has been very much about job security, the cost of living, the economy as it touches people. And that's something that Emmanuel Macron missed out on in the first round because he was AWOL for a lot of the time dealing with Ukraine. And he came in so late that he missed an opportunity to really say, look, I understand. It's about purchasing power. It's about your salary. It's about your unemployment pay. And he kind of lost that moment when he could have said, yes, I do understand the people. And that's something Marine Le Pen did to her advantage. Now, after the first round, most of the candidates who were defeated said to their supporters, you must block Marine Le Pen. But not all of them said you must vote for Macron. And there is a difference there. It doesn't mean they'll actually go out. They might just stay home today.
All right, but interestingly, another leader, Eric Zemmour, who was there in the first round, he managed to get almost about 7% of the votes. He seemed to have endorsed Marine Le Pen. So do we expect that he would be able to transfer the votes of his supporters to Marine Le Pen?
Yes, his voters will almost certainly transfer to Le Pen because it's the same far-right ideologies. However, there is a considerable chunk of his voters from the first round who say, no, we won't. We voted for Zemmour because we're sick of Marine Le Pen, who actually isn't going as far as we wanted her to go. And we don't believe she can do what she says she'll do. And so they might simply say, look, no, we wanted Zemmour, we want something different, and she's not enough. They would not vote for Macron, so they too will just stay home.
All right, very interesting there. Thank you very much indeed, Elaine, for joining us from Paris and getting us all those insights. This does promise to be a very exciting election. It could go right down to the wire at this point of time. We'll, of course, get to know in a few hours' time as to who the French people have, of course, voted for as their next president. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.